Hi guys, Mrs. Manley here checking in with you on the Wednesday-Thursday lesson, which is Inequalities Part 2. Make sure that you are doing your attendance forms. You have 2 a week. The first one is due by midnight on Wednesday. The second one is due by midnight on Friday. Do not begin filling out the Friday form until Thursday. Okay? It shows us the timestamp. If you fill both of them out on the same day, we're only going to count you for one. Please also make sure you're turning in your LHS Mastery on time. This week, Tuesday students, so odd students 1 through 5, yours is due on Thursday. Even students, the first time I see you is Wednesday, so yours is due on Friday. That's 4th, 6th, and 8th period. Every day that it's late is minus 10 points. Minus 10 points per day. All right, so here we go with Systems of Inequalities Part 2. So we're going to start today with special cases and look at what no solution is going to look like. So the very first thing we have to do, as always, is get these in slope-intercept form first. So let's do this first one. So 3x minus y is greater than 4. Okay? To get this to be in slope-intercept form, the first thing I need to do is move the slope. So it's 3x, so I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. 3x minus 3x is 0. So I'm going to bring down my negative y is greater than. Slope comes down first, and then y-intercept. Remember that negative y, means negative 1y. So I need to divide everything by negative 1. Be very careful here. Since we divided both sides by a negative number, we're going to have to flip our inequality symbol. Remember, that's only with inequalities. So now I have y is less than. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 makes positive 3x. Positive 4 divided by negative 1 makes negative 4. Okay? So here's my first inequality, so I'm going to graph it. So my y-intercept is negative 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. My slope is 3, which means 3 over 1. So I'm going to rise 3, run 1 to the right because it's positive. So 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. All right. And then we need to go ahead and connect this with a line. Specifically, a dashed line, because it is not or equal to. Okay, so let me get something to draw a line with here. All right, there's my dashed line. And then it's y is less than. So less than, we shade below. Shade below. So below the line is going to be over here. Now remember, technically, all of this white space should be getting filled in. It's hard for me to do on a computer, so just imagine it that way. So as of right now, anything in the red area except on the dashed line is a solution to 3x minus y is greater than 4. Remember, solution means that any point that's in that area, we could plug in, and it would be a true statement. Now we're going to do the second equation. Bear with me just a second. There we go. I'm going to change colors. Let's do purple. So negative 3x plus y is greater than 2. So again, to get this in slope-intercept form, I need to move my slope first. It's negative 3x, so I'm going to add 3x. That gives me y is greater than. Slope comes down first, then y-intercept. So I have y is greater than 3x plus 2. So my y-intercept is at positive 2, right here. And then again, my slope is 3 over 1, and it's positive. So again, I'm going to rise 3, run 1. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. And I could go backwards. So hopefully you're noticing that this is going to create parallel lines. Parallel lines. So this one is going to be dashed again because it's not or equal to. And this one's greater than. So greater than is shade above. So above is going to be over here. So what you're going to notice this time is that my solutions don't have a point where they're overlapping. So this would be no solution, just like it says on the title. If your two colors do not overlap, there is not an area where there's going to be a solution to both. Okay, this is kind of like when you did systems of equations last year, and if you had two parallel lines, it was no solution because they never intersected. Now, you could have parallel lines that do intersect with one another, but the purple one, for example, would have had to have been shaded below. If it was y is less than 3x plus 2 and we shaded below the line, we would have an overlap area. Okay, so I do need you to realize that parallel lines don't necessarily mean no solution with inequalities. It just depends on how they're shaded. All right, so let's look at another one. So this one is infinite solutions. Infinite solutions. So this first one is already in slope-intercept form. Y is less than 4/5 x. So notice there's no y-intercept, okay, because that's the same as saying y is less than 4/5 x plus 0. So we're going to start at the origin. And it's positive slope, so I'm going to rise 4 and run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, once I've got plenty of dots to make a line, I can do that. Again, this is going to be dotted because it's not or equal to, or dashed. There we go. And it's less than, so I'm going to shade below. There we go. All right, for the second equation, I'm going to change colors. Let's go to blue. So I need to get this to be in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to move my slope first by subtracting 4x, and I have negative 5y is greater than. Slope comes down first, then y-intercept. Now, technically, do I need to write that 0? No, I don't. I'm going to divide by negative 5 all the way across. Since I'm dividing both sides by negative, I need to flip my inequality symbol. Negative 4 divided by negative 5 would make positive 4/5 x plus 0, which, if you notice, is the same as my first equation. So if I was to graph this, I would graph right on top of it, and my overlap would be the same area because it's the same line. Okay, so infinite solutions would be when you have the two exact same areas shaded in. All right, so we're going to move on and start looking at some assessment question types. So when we say assessment question types, we mean types of questions you might see on your EQ9 CFA. You might see them on the next county benchmark. You might see them on TN-Ready. So here's our first assessment type question that we might see. So normally, on something like TN-Ready, they're not going to have you graph by hand because it would take a long time for them to grade that. So usually they're going to give you something graphed and then ask you questions about it. So in this case, you have a system of inequalities that's been graphed, and it wants you to match the system to the graph. Okay? So here are the two things I would look at. I have one dashed line, and I have one solid line. So I've got a dashed, and I have a solid. Okay? So that means one of them is going to be less than or greater than, and one is going to be less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. If you look at your 4 answer choices, all of them match that. So there's nothing we can get rid of yet. So let's look at the different pieces. So my dashed line, if I look at the y-intercept of the dashed line, okay, and the dashed line is going to be either less than or greater than. my y-intercept is right here at 0. So b equals 0. I can also look at how it's shaded, and that would tell me if it's less than or greater than. So notice that it's shaded below that pink line. So since it's shaded below, that tells me it's going to be a y is less than something. Okay. For the solid line, my y-intercept is -1. Okay. And then it's shaded above the solid line. Above. So that's going to be a y is greater than. So let's see if we can get rid of some of these. Okay. So for the dashed line, we have no y-intercept. Okay. So that matches up, no y-intercept, no y-intercept, no y-intercept, no y-intercept. Okay. So that didn't help me so far. Oops. Okay. But we also know it has to be y is less than. So y is less than -6x, less than -1/6, less than -1/6, less than, okay. So that didn't help me out either. So let's look at something else. So the next thing we could look at then would be the slope. Okay. So we need to pick 2 points. So here's one here. And then you need to pick another one that is in a corner, which would be this one. Alright, so then let's find our rise and our run. So I'm rising 1. My slope is 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1/6. And I'm running to the left, so it's negative. Okay, so I need a slope of -1/6. So that gets rid of A. But B is -1/6, C is -1/6, D is -1/6. Okay. So let's see if we can get the solid line to help us out. So my solid line needs to have a y-intercept of -1. So we've got a -1 here. Not in this one, so we can get rid of that one. And we have a -1 here. Okay? Let's see what else we can look at. I notice that the slope is 1/5 in one and -1/5 in the other. So let's look at this blue line. Is that positive slope or negative slope? Okay, it's rising and going to the right, which means positive slope. So I can get rid of D. So that leaves me with the answer choice B. Answer choice B. So you could do process of elimination like this, or you could have said, let me erase, or you could have said dashed line and just went through and found everything. So I could have said, okay, here's my slope, -1/6, x, my y-intercept is 0, so I don't need to put anything. It's shaded below, so less than, and kind of go from there. So it's kind of up to you. You can either just write it, or you can use process of elimination. All right, let's look at another one. So here's another one, match the system to the graph. Notice this time we have not 1, not 2, but 3 different lines to look at. Okay, so the first thing I would look at is that I should hopefully know that if I have x by itself with no slope and no, if it's not y equals mx plus b form, if you have x and a number, that's going to make a vertical line. And if you have y and a number, that's going to make a horizontal line. Right, so those are some things that could help us here. So I'm going to be looking for a vertical line that is solid and goes through the point -2 on the x-axis, because that's my x-intercept. So if I go through here, solid line, solid line. So if you notice answer choice W, this red line is solid and going through -2. Same thing on x. But on y, we don't have one going through there. So I'm going to get rid of y. And then on z, it's going through -4, which is not right. All right, so now we've got it narrowed down to 2 answer choices, 50-50. For y is greater than -4, we should have a horizontal dashed line going through -4, and both of those have that. So the last thing that we're going to have to look at here is y is less than -2x plus 4. hopefully if you're comparing these two graphs, you can see that they're shaded the same way. You basically have the exact same yellow triangle there. So we have to look at what's different. What's different is this line right here is dashed versus solid. So which should we have? Solid versus dashed. Less than is a dashed line. So that gets rid of this, and my answer is X. Okay, again, process of elimination. All right, here's our next example. A system of inequalities is graphed below. Which system is represented in the graph? Again, we have three choices here. So when I'm looking, I'm sorry, not three choices. We have two different lines here that we're looking at. So I'm seeing one solid line, one dashed line. I notice that the dashed line is horizontal, which means it's y and a number. So the number it's going through is 1, and it's dashed, so it has to be y is less than 1. Y is less than 1. So let's see what we can get rid of. We can get rid of this one, because that one's less than or equal to. We can get rid of this one, because it's greater than or equal to. So now we have, oh, and we can get rid of this one, because its y is, no, we can't. Sorry, not necessarily less than 1. I misspoke there, guys. So it's either y is less than 1 or y is greater than 1 is what the dashed line tells us. So now we just need to figure out which it is. So I'm shaded above the dashed line, which means it should be y is greater than 1. That should mean this is the correct answer choice, but we can double check it. So my other line should be solid, and greater than would tell me it's shaded above, and it is. You can see this is shaded above. So answer choice D would be my answer here. All right, here's another one just like the one we just did. So go ahead and pause your screen. Take a couple minutes and see if you can go through process of elimination, and then hit play to see how you did. All right, here we go. Hopefully you paused and tried this one on your own. So we have two different lines here, one dashed, one solid. Okay, so that means we have one that's or equal to and one that's not. If you look at our answer choices right now, that's not enough to help us. So let's pick one to focus on. So let's focus on the solid line. Okay. So if I look at my solid line, I know it's going to be y. And then if I'm looking at this solid line, I can see that it's shaded above. Okay. So it's greater than or equal to. So I could go through and see if that helps me at all. It does. I can get rid of this one because it says y is less than or equal to. And just that one. So now let's look at some other things. I can also see that it's negative slope. So here's a point here. Here's a point here. So I'm rising 1, running 3 to the left. So it should be y is greater than or equal to negative 1/3. So that gets rid of this last one. Okay. And then obviously my y-intercept is 2. So 1/3 x plus 2. So that checks out in both of them. So now we need to look at the dashed line. So I'm going to look at my answer choices and see what's different. So this one says y is less than. This says y is greater than. Okay. The less than and greater than here have to do with how it's shaded. So let's see how our dashed line is shaded. All right. So my dashed line here, I can see is shaded below. All right. How can I tell it's below? Because I go to my y-intercept right here, and if I look below it, it's shaded below. So this should be a y is less than, and then everything else is the same, 3x minus 3. So I can get rid of this, and I know this is my answer choice. Right, here's another one. which region best represents the solution to the system of inequalities? And guys, I don't like this question because we can see that there are solid lines here, but since we can't see the actual inequalities that were graphed, we can't tell where the shading should be. So we're just going to skip this one. So I'm just going to go backwards to the last one we did. So we're going to stop here for today. This is basically it. You just really have to be able to look at these systems of inequalities and be able to match them up on a graph. Sometimes we see a word problem. So I'm just trying to look and see if there are any word problems that might appear on your test. And I don't see any. So the main things you need to be able to do here. You do need to be able to graph a system of inequalities. You need to be able to look at a picture of a system of graphed inequalities like this and match it up to the system itself. The other thing that you need to be able to do we didn't necessarily do today, but we talked about it in our previous lesson, is you need to be able to look for solutions. So if I said, what's a solution to this system of inequalities, you would know that it's anything in this area right here where there's overlap, except for on the dashed line. Okay, solid line is included, dashed line is not. So I could say this point right here, 4, 3 is a solution. You also need to be able to know what's not a solution. So if it asked you, is -3, 2 a solution, you would say -3, 2, no it's not. Or if it said 2, -3, 2, -3, that's not a solution. It's a solution to one of the inequalities, but not both. So you need to be able to recognize both. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here for today. You're going to have a review to do on your next day. Okay, on your next day. And then you'll have a quiz coming up probably early next week, because really this is all there is to it. Okay, make sure you're getting those LHS masteries on time. We'll start back up with math minutes for you guys next week. I forgot to put it up here for you this week. And I hope you're having a great week. Email me if you need to do anything, or if you need to ask me anything. If you need to meet for a Zoom, email me. And I'm going to go live, I believe, on Friday at 2. You can double check the announcements to make sure. Have a great day.